And pornography leads to that social awkwardness. It leads us to wanting to isolate. It gets us alone. And then if it can get us alone, then it can take us down to those feelings of despair and hopelessness and helplessness. And then once it has us all the way down there, then it brings on thoughts of suicide or thoughts of hurting other people. And
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for attending today. We've got a treat for you. This is Chris Parker, and he is the son of Dennis Parker, my trainer and master hypnotherapist. And he actually runs the Certified Hypnotherapy Training School with your brother, right? With Blair.
Mhm. Yep, me and Blair.
Yes. So
Thanks.
I'm because Dennis has since passed this last year, and we all miss him terribly. He was an amazing man. So, we're going to not only get insights into Chris's life and what led him to hypnotherapy and his thoughts about it, but we're also going to get a sneak peek into his amazing school and the one that I suggest for everybody after my extensive research into multiple schools. Your school is the one that I chose, and I'm so glad that I did. So, we'll talk a little bit about that more. But first, I want to ask you, you grew up with a master hypnotherapist. How old were you when he started doing hypnotherapy?
I was 3 years old when he went through the school.
Lucky you. So you
Yeah.
you got the transformed version of dad. Do you remember anything about transition, or have siblings told you about what he was like before and after, anything like that?
Um, Blair actually says quite a bit. I'm teaching the school with Blair, and in class, he's talked about how before Dad did the hypnotherapy, he was very heavy-handed, and many times he was scolded and he was punished for things that he didn't even do. And so my brother had a lot of built up anger and all this kind of stuff, and so he saw the transition. Where I was 3 years old, I I just always remember my dad being, I mean, he wasn't perfect,
None of them are.
but he was never heavy-handed with me. Um, I can only recall one time growing up where he kicked me with his cowboy boots. Um, but this particular incident, I knew that I deserved it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned cowboy boots because your dad's a good old boy. He had the old fashioned, all of that stuff. So it's not a surprise that he would have this lifestyle, this rugged, you know, get pick you up by your bootstraps type of mentality pre hypnotherapy training. So I'm glad that you got to see the new improved version of dad after his transition. What was it like? And maybe you don't know the difference, but I'm sure that you saw other families and dads and could see, okay, this is the life of my dad is different. But what was it like growing up with a hypnotherapy dad? Did he like use it on you all the time? What was it like?
um, well, dad, he was a father of 11, right? I'm the 11th child.
You're the baby. I didn't know that.
I'm the baby. And so, growing up until I was about um, maybe 12 or 13, he was gone. Like he was working constantly. He was hardly ever at home. Um, and when he was home, he would say things here and there. And us kids, like when it came to hypnotherapy, we're like, well, that's weird, you know. We're like, yeah, okay, dad, whatever. And but by the time I was 14, 15, he started to slow down. And I remember one day coming home from school, I I think I was about 15. And he's like, "Hey, Chris, come sit down." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And he's like, "So close your eyes." And I'm like, okay, what's going on here?" And he takes me into a session and just randomly caught me off guard. And he goes into this whole ordeal of going back and finding this emotion. And he brings up, or I guess I bring up, right? Because in hypnotherapy, you follow the client and wherever they go. And so I kind of brought up this emotion, this feeling of not being worth it. And so my dad talks me through all of this, and I end up crying. And I, a 15-year-old boy, we don't want to cry.
No, of course not.
But he runs me through the whole deal and then brings me out of it. And um, there I am with tear-stained cheeks and my mom and dad in front of me. And I think, okay, let's not do this again. That was weird.
Was that
Moving
your
on.
first experience with like the whole hypnotherapy sit down session type of thing?
That was my first experience.
Wow.
And it stuck with me. It stuck with me, and it stayed with me all the way until I was 25 years old, and I was in the Navy. And I remember just being terrified. Like I was always terrified, right? Like I terrified as in I always had this fear of It the Clown and Chucky and all these scary movies. And so there I was in the Navy. I was sitting in my bunk, completely alone. I had no reason to be afraid, but I, I was imagining in my mind It the Clown was coming to get me.
Wow.
And in that moment, I remembered that session I had when I was 15. And I remembered how my dad used the imagination to change the emotions that I was feeling. And he did that by regressing me back to the first time I ever felt that feeling. So I decided, okay, well, let's regress back to when this first started. And I grew up with 7 older brothers, and I had to prove myself that I was brave enough, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
the
can watch
youngest.
what you watch.
Exactly, exactly. And so they one day when mom and dad are out, um, they're out on vacation because my dad, with hypnotherapy, he became one of the top sellers in the country. He used hypnotherapy with his um, what would you call it, the people underneath him. He was the manager, so he would train people with hypnotherapy to go out and make sales.
Mhm.
Did extremely well to the point where he started winning vacations and things like that. And so he was on one of those vacations to Hawaii,
Mhm.
and it was around Halloween time. And I told my brothers, I could watch all these scary movies, bring them on.
Halloween.
And and so they did. They sat me down for about 8 hours straight, and I watched all the scary movies.
Oh,
I watched Freddy Krueger all the way to It the Clown to Chucky to Halloween, Jason, all these different scary. And
and you were how old?
I was 7.
Oh, yes. So you didn't have that barrier very solid yet. You just let it
Nope.
all in.
Yep. I let it all in, and it stuck with me. And so there I was, 25 years old, and still terrified. And but as I went back and I was regressing and I was seeing this happen, I went back even further to when I was 5 years old, and um, I saw a zombie movie that my brothers were watching, and I remember feeling this great fear that I'm going to die, or it's going to get me, or and it was at that moment I decided to imagine something different. I imagined the Savior, and he was there with me. And in that moment, I imagined in my mind the Savior telling me, "Fear not." He said, "I am with you." He said, "I've been with you since you were 5 all the way to when you're 25, and I'm still here."
That's beautiful.
And
In my
powerful.
head looping, God is bigger than the boogeyman. That, that's I'm sorry. This beautiful moment. Let me sing cartoons.
uh,
That so you were able to do self-hypnosis just from what you remembered from that first session.
from that first session, exactly.
And did it
And
work?
it worked. It worked. I From that day to this day, I don't get scared.
Because there's no need.
Yeah, there's no need. And whenever there's anything that could possibly be scary that comes up, I know that that fear is not there to help me, and I can I can easily just block it out. And I just remember that the Savior is there. He's always there.
So just like that, and that's how it works with hypnotherapy. So often, unless there are layers that you need to pull back, but you went and you found that sensitizing event, you flipped it and recognized the truth, and it's spread across your entire life. That's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
So with that amazing first story, when did you decide I actually want to do this? I want to follow in Dad's footsteps.
Um, that took a little while. It was I got through the Navy, and I was jumping back from one job to the next job, and um, I had this nighttime job where I was working, and I had a lot of free mental time,
Okay.
right? Because it was a lot of work that was very repetitive.
Okay.
And so, because it was so repetitive, I decided to start reading some books. And the books that I was drawn to were books on meditation. And well, first it was self-improvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just love self-improvement books. And I just so happened to pick up a book on meditation. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever. Like I, I had struck gold here, right? And so I think I read it was Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo.
Okay.
And so I read that book, and then I went on to read another one of his books, and then another one of his books. I think he has like 3 or 4. I read all 4 of them. As I well,
The Habit of Being Yourself was my breakthrough book into hypnotherapy.
which one?
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yep, by Joe
So
Dispenza.
completely shifted my dental trauma, and that led me to where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Good
So
guy.
we have a similar story.
Yeah.
That's neat. But I remember taking all of that, and I went to a family reunion, and I was everywhere. I was talking to my siblings. I was like, "Oh, meditation this, meditation that, and brain waves, and we can heal ourselves, and all this fun stuff," and just really animated, really excited. And my dad hears me, and he says, "Hey, Chris, you know that's exactly what I do." And I'm just like, "Dad, you do hypnotherapy. This is meditation, completely different." And he's like, "No." He said, "They're the same thing."
Yeah. Different language, same thing.
Yeah. And so we stayed up till
How did that feel in that moment where you're like, what? Or it was that brain explosion?
uh it was a big aha moment.
I've known this all the time.
uh And I mean, I sit down, and I think one of the first things I talked about was, oh, but they have these EEG scans. right? And they can track brain waves, and they can see when you go down into these different states of mind. And he was like, yeah, have you read my book? And I'm like, no, I read like 1 or 2 pages, but I didn't get through his book. But he's like, yeah, if you read to the end of my book, I did an experiment with a lady named Debbie Packer down in Arizona, and they had tracked the brain waves of golfers before and after a hypnotherapy session. And they showed that their game improved by 10%. And these were professional golfers, like these
Yeah, that's a
golfers
big,
in life. So
right.
yeah, a 10% increase for a professional golfer is a huge thing.
Wow.
And it has the different brain scans and things. So anyways, my dad had been doing this for a long time, and here I was so excited about it, and it was exactly the same thing.
Interesting. And so then you started working with him, and now you've taken over the family business with your brother, right?
Yep.
And what's the Certified Hypnotherapy Training School that's in far west Utah, but you don't have to go to Utah to be trained, right? You do online training for students.
Yep, it's all over Zoom, and the certificate is good in all 50 states and in quite a few other countries as well that we can
Oh, I didn't even know that. In case I decide
practice
to
it.
go to another country. Well, now with Zoom, we can have clients in other countries. That's wonderful
Mhm.
to know. One thing that I love about the school is the school library. Not only do you get your training course, but you can go back for multiple years and see the same training course with different students, which brings about different questions and different clients. So there's, oh my gosh, there's, gosh, what, 1,000 hours of training that you have access to?
Yeah, there's about 1,000 hours of training, and then there's also another like 1 or 2 thousand hours of my dad doing sessions.
Session, right, which are so valuable. We can
Mhm.
do your own session with somebody else's session.
Yep.
That's so for anybody that's thinking, man, I've watched a lot of videos, I've had hypnotherapy myself, this is something I want to do to help the world, absolutely reach out to Chris and Blair and see how you can enroll. And for sure, tell them Ruthie Renae sent you and find out more information. I'll post in the show notes for sure some more information and a link where they can find out more. So now with, I know you're involved with the school, but you have your own expertise of clients and some groups that you've worked with. Who are your favorites to work with?
Well, I enjoy working with anyone that comes through the door.
Well, that's
uh,
good.
but what I've found myself doing the most of, one is working with young men and older men to get over pornography. Um, and I've taken that on mainly because that was my dad's business. That was his specialty. Um, and so as he's passed away, I've come in and I've started to do that quite often. Um, so um, I've become very comfortable doing those sessions. I've had good success doing those sessions, and I enjoy helping men to get over that so that they can improve their marriages. So these young men can go on missions, and it's very fulfilling to watch that transition.
That's
Um,
beautiful. That's probably crosses over to really any addiction or habit that's keeping you from living the life that you want to live. In my own personal practice, I see how that is, it's so crippling for not just for marriages or family or relationships, but for progression in their business, because there's this pull, this distraction in their lives that they just can't seem to let go of. So that's so terribly important for
Exactly.
many things, cell phones, alcohol,
Hmm.
whatever it may be. Do you find
Exactly.
it's the same route where it's just another avenue, or is it
Hmm.
something a little different?
Yeah, and and this is kind of a question that psychologists have up in the air, and that is, well, which causes which, right? Are
Chicken
they
and egg.
are they becoming socially distant, and are they doing worse in their occupation because of pornography,
Mhm.
or are they in pornography because they have this social awkwardness, right?
Right,
And in my mind, it's not even a question,
right,
right?
right.
Because in my mind, um, the pornography is it's a tool of the adversary, right? And we take off the mask of the adversary. We kind of say, hey, look, this is what's really going on.
See it clearly.
That, yeah, because the adversary's goal is to lead us down a path for our own destruction.
Mhm.
And pornography leads to that social awkwardness. It leads us to wanting to isolate. It gets us alone. And then if it can get us alone, then it can take us down to those feelings of despair and hopelessness and helplessness. And then once it has us all the way down there, then it brings on thoughts of suicide, or thoughts of hurting other people. And so
Not
it's,
good enough. It's not worth it. Yeah,
mhm,
that's I'm so grateful that you're helping so many people, and it's not just a problem for men. I've worked with women who actually fall into this category, and you think it's just not a big deal until it is. And
mhm,
so we need great people that can help us break the cycles and step into who you're really supposed to be, who you've always been all the time.
mhm.
Beautiful.
And it's very fulfilling to see them reconnect
Yes.
with the ones they love, reconnect with life, reconnect with, it's fulfilling.
That was my favorite. I remember when I first started this work, watching your dad with clients and seeing the lift in their countenance, the face, the years that come off the face when you take off of these emotions and peel them away and throw them to the side and get rid of them. And it's a physical difference that we see, that we feel. And then you step into life and you're like, whoa, did you get a facelift? It is a literal change in our countenance that happens with the work. Are there any so you shared your own story, which is amazing. Are there any super great stories that stand out of transition with you or with clients, or anything that you'd like to share with people that are just curious or like not sure about this stuff?
um, a couple people come to mind, um, and one of them was they were just kind of interested. I did, with my other business, I work with grief.
Mhm.
Um, my wife is a widow. Her first husband passed away with brain cancer, um, and we've always connected with widows. Like, my wife likes to reach out, and it's just kind of been part of my life, just to be around these people. And so I've always had a spot near and dear to me, um, wanting to help widows. And so I threw this widow course together, and we had a bunch of widows come to the class, and I was working with them. And this one lady, she just she got through a lot of things, and she just came to life with hypnotherapy, just absolutely loved it. And we had multiple sessions together, um, and she ended up sending me everyone she knew.
Oh,
all
wonderful.
kinds of all kinds of referrals sent from her, and she just absolutely loved it. And it was fun to see the transformation that she had. Um, Another client was an older gentleman. Um, Same story. He was dealing with grief. Um, and I helped him with hypnotherapy to be able to move forward, move on. He ended up getting married and moving down to St. George. And um, one day out of the blue, he just texts me and he says, "Hey, I want to thank you because my life is so much better now, and I know it is because of what we did, the work that we did." So,
Oh, I love that. It is, it doesn't matter whether it's fear or grief or addiction or whatever is crippling, holding, binding us, our soul for who we were meant to be and how we're supposed to show, how we want to show up in life. These simple tools. And of course, I'm sure that you're the same as me. It's not me. I'm really good at asking questions, but you get into a hypnotic state and we open the path for our client to figure out the answers for themselves and break free. And so they are empowered, whether rather than having a counselor or somebody tell them what to do and take these action steps, they get to see for themselves. And it's very empowering. And it's
mm,
beautiful to see that transformation.
it
Thank
is
you for
beautiful.
sharing.
It is.
Well, it's just so good to reconnect with you. It's always nice to see your face and hear about the school and how it's going. Are there any messages that you have to people that are curious and just wondering or just scared? What message would you have for those people listening to you right now?
Well, hypnotherapy is not as weird as it sounds.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
is just like meditation. It's the same thing, right? The states of the mind, and it is quite fascinating. It's amazing how much you can learn around this subject, and I continue to learn. Um, and so I would say, pick up a few books, read about it, learn about it, and realize that it is a tool that we can use to help us. Um, Man, my mind goes off into so many tangents. I don't know how long
Right. This.
I could talk about all kinds of stuff here. But it really is just the funnest thing. It's so fun to know that you have control, you have power, and your life, you don't have to be a victim. You can control your life, you can control the direction that you're going, and your mind is just extremely powerful to create. And that's what this is. It's creating the life that you want.
Absolutely. Well, that was perfect. My course happens to be create your own reality. And
Hmm.
so that fits right in. And it's true. We're just the guides. We're the guides to help our clients uncover the power they have always had. I love that you shared that piece. And it can't hurt. So, just to be curious and give it a try, it's worth investing in yourself. And again, if you feel like this is something that you love and you want to be a facilitator or guide or hypnotherapist, talk to Chris and Blair and get enrolled, and you have a lifetime. Now, again, the school I talked about, the access you have to those thousands of hours, there's no limit. Every year I come back and say, oh, okay, what's that link again? And I want to hop into a class that's current. And it's always nice. I remember when I was in school, we had some graduated people that would pop in, and then Dennis would put them on the spot and tell us how you're doing, share what you're up to. And it was encouraging to me to see where I could be. So I thank you so much for sharing your time with me and your stories. They're always wonderful. And I sure miss and love your dad.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for everybody else watching. And until next time, clear your mind, take your power back, and be in control of your own reality. This is Ruthie Renae.